Dad, something's wrong. That girl is signing for help. Amira signed, her small hands trembling midair as she stared past the tide of travelers rushing through LAX. Marcus Evans stopped mid-stride. His daughter wasn't prone to dramatics. When she signed with that sharp, urgent rhythm, something was truly wrong. He dropped to her height, watching her eyes not wide with fear, but laser-focused on something across the terminal. Where? He signed. Amira pointed through the crowd. Red sweater. Tall woman. Behind her. Look now. Marcus followed her line of sight to the woman mid-40s, tailored blazer, sunglasses indoors, the kind of confidence that came from money or privilege or both. She marched through the terminal, dragging a thin, nervous girl behind her, but it wasn't their appearance that mattered. It was the girl's hands. Behind her back, hidden from the woman's sight, the girl signed in frantic, stabbing gestures. Help, please, help, bad, danger. Marcus felt something in his chest tighten. He learned ASL after his wife died. Long nights, long tears, long lessons because it was the only bridge he had left to communicate with Amira. That same language was now screaming for help from a child who had no other voice. He placed a steadying hand on his daughter's shoulder. Stay close, he signed. Don't let go. Amira nodded, her small fingers gripping his tightly. Marcus took a breath, scanning the area. Calling 911 was the obvious step, but the woman was already moving fast, heading toward gate 43. If she boarded, if she slipped past him, he didn't want to imagine that. He spotted 2 airport security officers near a kiosk. Before dialing 911, he rushed toward them with Amira at his side. Excuse me, Marcus said, raising his voice. There's a little girl over there signing for help. She looks terrified. I think she's in danger. The taller officer gave him a once-over, the kind of look Marcus had grown used to over the years. Suspicion first, then irritation. Sir, the officer said, just move along. Kids get upset in airports all the time. No, Marcus insisted. She's deaf. She's signing help me. You need to. The second officer held up a hand. Look, we don't need drama today. You people always want to make something out of nothing. The way he said you people landed like a slap. Marcus clenched his jaw. I'm telling you she's in danger. Then call the police, the first officer snapped. But don't bother us with parenting problems or whatever this is. Unless you want me to escort you out of the terminal, walk away. Marcus stared at them, 2 men in uniforms, refusing to lift a finger, refusing to see. He felt anger burn through him, sharp and cold. Not the explosive kind. This was the kind that came from years of being dismissed, judged, underestimated. Years of being a black man asking for basic help and being treated like a nuisance. He signed to Amira. Come on. She watched him with worry, sensing the shift in his posture. Only once they were several steps away did Marcus pull his phone from his pocket. 911, what is your emergency? The dispatcher asked. This is Marcus Evans. I'm at LAX, Terminal 6 near Gate 43. A girl, maybe 10 or 11, is signaling for help in sign language. I believe she's in immediate danger. The woman with her is pulling her through the terminal. I need officers here now. He gave full descriptions, down to the color of the girl's worn sneakers. The dispatcher confirmed that airport police were being sent and told him to maintain visual contact. He hung up and signed to Amira, stay right beside me. Are we helping her? Amira signed back, her eyes fierce. Yes, we are. Do. They moved through the crowd, weaving around families, business travelers, and vacationers who were all too absorbed in their own rush to see anything unusual. But Marcus couldn't take his eyes off the woman and the girl. The girl stumbled. The woman jerked her upright as though adjusting luggage. Her grip was harsh, her pace relentless. And the girl's hands, God, those hands still pleaded in that silent, trembling language of fear. Help. Please. Bad. Danger. No one else saw. No one else understood. Marcus and Amira followed at a cautious distance. Every so often, the girl glanced back, her eyes, scanning, searching, desperate. When her gaze finally locked on Amira's, something shifted in the air. A connection. Recognition. Hope. Amira lifted one hand shakily and signed, slow and clear. Are you okay? The girl blinked, stunned. Then her fingers rose behind her back. No, not safe. The woman turned sharply, sunglasses pointed straight at Marcus and Amira. Her lips tightened. She sensed them. "Let's go," she hissed at the girl, pulling harder. Marcus moved forward. "Excuse me," he said, stepping into the woman's path. "I need to ask, is this your daughter?" The woman didn't miss a beat. "Stepdaughter," she snapped. "And we're late. Move." She's been signing for help. A crack flickered in her composure. Just a flicker, but Marcus saw it. "She's deaf," the woman said coolly. "She doesn't know what she's doing." Huh. Behind Marcus, Amira stepped forward, small, determined, heart first. Her hands rose. "You don't have to go," she signed to the girl. "You're not alone. My dad helps people." The girl's face broke soundless sobs, shaking her entire body. Her hands flew desperately. "She sold me. Please don't let her take me." Rage exploded in Marcus's chest. The woman lunged, grabbing the child's arm so hard her fingers turned white. "Stop signing," she hissed. "You little..." "Let go," Marcus said, voice low, controlled, dangerous. People began to notice. Heads turned. A businessman slowed. A mother hugged her toddler closer. "Lack security is on their way," Marcus said. "And police." For the first time, fear overtook the woman's face. She released the girl, who collapsed into Amira's arms, shaking violently but safe. In the distance, airport police appeared, jogging toward them. Marcus positioned himself in front of both children, towering, unmovable. Amira looked up at him, her hands signing the words as if they were sacred. "She's safe now, Dad." Marcus exhaled, eyes warming. "Yes," he signed back. "She is." And there, in the busiest terminal in America, amid the chaos, the flights, the noise, a silent cry for help had finally been heard. Only because someone cared enough to listen. If this story moved you, tap like and drop a comment with where you're watching from. Who knows? Someone near you might be watching too. The police arrived with a sense of urgency. 2 uniformed officers from LAX Airport Division flanking a plainclothes detective in a Navy windbreaker, with LAPD stitched in white across the chest. The moment they reached the scene, the tension in the terminal shifted. Travelers paused, murmurs rose, and cameras came out. Curious, but distant. Marcus kept one arm slightly extended, not as a threat, but as a barrier protecting the 2 girls still clinging to each other. Naomi, as Marcus had learned when Amira gently asked her name through sign, was trembling uncontrollably. Amira held her tighter, small but unwavering. "I'm Officer Henley," the lead officer said, crouching slightly to Naomi's level, speaking softly. "Can you tell me what's happening?" "She's deaf," Marcus said. "My daughter is too." She recognized the signs. Naomi's been signaling for help behind her back. The woman tried to drag her through the airport. "I believe she was trafficking her." "Oh." The officers exchanged glances. "What woman?" asked the detective. Marcus pointed toward the coffee kiosk, where Rochelle Green was being quietly questioned by a 4th officer. Her arms were crossed, her lips pressed into a tight, trembling line. "She claimed to be Naomi's stepmother," Marcus added. "But she was aggressive, evasive. When Naomi signed that she was being sold, that's when I stepped in." The detective gave a nod, serious but professional. "We'll take over from here. Please stay nearby in case we need your statement." Marcus gave a quiet nod. His eyes dropped back to Naomi, still curled against Amira's side. "She's terrified," he said. "Someone needs to talk to her in her own language." The detective frowned slightly. "We've got someone on the way who's ASL certified, but it might take a few minutes." "I can help until then," Marcus offered. "Or Amira can. She's only 8, but she understands what's happening." At that, the officer hesitated. Then he said, "Okay, let's move to a quieter space." They were escorted to a nearby airline lounge, closed for maintenance, its frosted windows and quiet lighting now providing rare privacy in the chaos of LAX. A young officer brought bottled water, tissues, and 2 blankets. Naomi flinched as it was handed to her, and Marcus saw how deep her distrust ran. "Naomi." Marcus signed gently, crouching in front of her. "You're safe now. That woman can't hurt you. The police are going to take care of it." The girl blinked back tears but didn't move. Amira stepped forward and signed. She's scared. She thinks no one will believe her. Marcus nodded slowly. Then we show her she's not invisible anymore. Naomi's hands trembled, hovering near her lap. Then, slowly, they began to move. She said I was too quiet, easy to sell, said no one would miss me. Marcus inhaled sharply, forcing himself to stay steady. Do you know where she was taking you? He signed. Naomi nodded. Dallas. Then, somewhere else. I saw texts. She had a buyer. Marcus turned to the detective, who was watching with careful eyes. She says the woman had arranged to fly her to Dallas and hand her over to someone else. She found text messages about it. The detective gave a short nod, scribbling notes. That matches what we pulled from the suspect's phone already. There are encrypted messages, some tied to flagged contacts in Texas. She may have been part of something larger. Marcus clenched his fists. We almost missed her. No one else even noticed. That truth cut deeper than anything. Hundreds of people passed Naomi, and no one had seen her silent scream, no one but Amira. A few minutes later, a woman entered the room mid-40s, confident gait, warm eyes, and approached Naomi with a gentle smile. She wore a badge clipped to her blouse and introduced herself with fluent ASL. I'm Agent Hall, FBI. You're safe now. Naomi stared at her for a long moment before her fingers started again. Faster this time. Urgent. She told her everything. Rochelle. The texts. The threats. The money. Her mother's death. How she hadn't spoken to anyone in days. How she'd rehearsed her signs behind her back, hoping someone might understand. Agent Hall listened patiently, her expression tightening with each new detail. Then she turned to Marcus. She's incredibly brave, the agent said, and lucky your daughter saw her. Marcus shook his head. I don't believe in luck. I believe in paying attention. The agent smiled faintly. Well, that might have saved her life. Rochelle was arrested an hour later, charged with attempted trafficking, child endangerment, and obstruction. As she was led away in handcuffs, she sneered in Marcus's direction. This isn't over. He didn't respond. He just stood there, holding Amira's hand and watching Naomi, who was now sitting a little straighter, her eyes a little clearer. By the time the official statements were taken and CPS arrived, it was late afternoon. Naomi had barely spoken since the long signing session with Agent Hall. She seemed numb, her hands limp, her body slumped into the chair. The social worker, a middle-aged woman named Mrs. Barrett, explained that Naomi would be taken into emergency foster care in the city. We'll try to place her somewhere that accommodates her needs, she said, vaguely. Does that mean a home with someone who speaks ASL? Marcus asked. Mrs. Barrett hesitated. We'll do our best. He nodded slowly. But the knot in his chest didn't loosen. When it was time to leave, Naomi didn't react. Not until Amira approached, pulled a purple scrunchie from her own wrist, and gently tied Naomi's messy ponytail. Then she signed, You're not alone. I'll remember you. Naomi's lip trembled. Her hand lifted hesitantly. Thank you, she signed back. Marcus watched the exchange, something heavy settling behind his ribs. They walked out into the night air. LAX buzzed behind them, neon and noise. The moment felt suspended quiet, but not peaceful. He buckled Amira into the back seat of the rental, her small hands resting in her lap. She's going to be okay, right? Amira signed. Marcus hesitated. Then he signed back. She's safe tonight. That's what matters now. But as he started the engine, the image of Naomi's trembling fingers replayed in his mind. And something inside him whispered, Tonight isn't enough. The next morning, Marcus sat at the kitchen table of his small apartment in Chicago, the light of dawn barely pushing through the blinds. His hands wrapped around a mug of coffee gone cold, untouched. Across from him, Amira was coloring in silence, glancing up at him every few minutes, as if waiting for something, an answer, perhaps, or a shift in mood that would tell her everything was going to be okay. But Marcus didn't have those answers. Not yet. He'd barely slept. After flying back from Los Angeles late last night, his thoughts had spiraled with every blink of Naomi's hands, every expression of fear she'd signed, every moment that had nearly slipped past unseen. He thought about Rochelle Green's voice, her mask of control cracking only when her plan began to unravel. He thought about those two smug security guards who dismissed him out of hand, and he thought most of all about how Naomi had almost disappeared into thin air, not with screaming or violence, but with the quiet rustle of a boarding pass. "Do you think she's eating breakfast?" Amira signed, looking up from her coloring. Marcus blinked. "Who?" Amira gave him a look. He exhaled. "I don't know, sweetheart. I hope so." Amira hesitated, then signed again. "I think she was hungry yesterday." Marcus nodded slowly. "I think so too." He rose from the table and moved to the window. The city outside was slowly waking up, buses hissing, crosswalks blinking, horns honking. Normal life, unaware of the quiet war that had nearly claimed a child just one day before. He didn't want to forget it. He couldn't. Not the look in Naomi's eyes, or the weight of her silence. He picked up his phone and dialed the number Agent Hall had given him before they left LAX. "This is Agent Monique Hall." Her voice came through after 2 rings, steady but tired. "Agent Hall, it's Marcus Evans." There was a pause. "I was hoping you'd call," she said. Marcus didn't waste time. "Do you know where Naomi is?" "She was placed with an emergency foster home in Koreatown," Agent Hall replied. "The foster parents are kind, experienced, but they don't speak ASL. Not fluently, anyway. We're trying to find a placement that can communicate with her properly." Marcus rubbed the back of his neck. "Is she okay?" "She's quiet, guarded, not sleeping much, according to her caseworker." "Can I see her?" Another pause. "Technically, you're not family." "I know," Marcus said, "but I'm not just some stranger either. I'm the only person she trusted. Amira and we connected with her. She needs continuity. She needs someone who can speak her language." "Now," Agent Hall sighed, "I agree with you. I do. But CPS has protocols. She's under state custody now. If you want to be involved, you'll need to talk to her caseworker." "Give me the name," Marcus said, already grabbing a pen. That afternoon, Marcus found himself in the waiting room of a regional CPS office in Westlake, the ceiling lights buzzing faintly overhead. Amira sat beside him, hugging her sketchbook to her chest, her feet swinging off the edge of the chair. A woman in her early 52nd stepped into the room. Wavy gray hair pulled back, reading glasses dangling from a cord. She scanned the clipboard in her hand and said, "Mr. Evans?" He stood. "Yes, I'm Patricia Denning, Naomi's caseworker." They shook hands and moved to her office, where Patricia gestured for him to sit. Amira stayed close, glancing warily around the cluttered space full of binders and framed posters that read things like, "Every child deserves a voice." Then, Patricia folded her hands. "Naomi's been through significant trauma. She's withdrawn, nonverbal since placement. The current foster family is doing their best, but without ASL, there's a wall." "I'd like to visit her," Marcus said. "Mr. Evans," Patricia replied gently, "you're not a relative. You're not licensed as a foster parent in California, or any state. What happened at LAX was extraordinary, and you should be commended, but in the eyes of the law, you're still a stranger." Not to Naomi. She knew you for a few hours." Marcus shook his head. "She saw me, and I saw her. That girl was about to be trafficked in broad daylight. If Amira hadn't noticed." "I understand, truly," Patricia said, "and I'm grateful for what you and your daughter did, but the system has boundaries. Protecting children also means protecting procedure." Marcus sat back, exhaling slowly. Beside him, Amira raised her hands. Patricia turned, surprised. "I want to see Naomi," Amira signed clearly. "She's not a case file. She's a person." Patricia blinked, stunned. "She's very articulate." "She's 8, Marcus said. "She's already learned what it means to be overlooked." There was a long silence. Patricia finally said, "Let me make a call." The visit was approved under supervised status, limited to 30 minutes. The foster home was modest but clean, tucked between 2 palm-lined streets not far from Wilshire Boulevard. Naomi sat stiffly on the edge of the living room couch when Marcus and Amira entered. Her hair was neater, pulled into a tight ponytail, but her eyes were the same, guarded, hollow, unsure. Amira didn't waste time. She plopped down beside her and started signing, rapid fire, like they were already mid-conversation. My cat knocked over a vase yesterday. My dad tripped on it. He said a bad word. I laughed. Naomi blinked. Amira continued. I made toast this morning. Burnt it. Again, but it smelled like popcorn. Naomi's fingers twitched, just slightly. Amira smiled. Do you want to draw with me? Silence. Then, the tiniest nod. Marcus stood back, letting it unfold. Naomi didn't look at him directly, but she didn't flinch either. By the time 30 minutes passed, Naomi had drawn a sunflower with jagged petals. She slid it across the table toward Amira. Amira signed, It's beautiful. Naomi signed, It's sad. Amira signed back, Sad flowers still grow. No. Marcus's throat tightened. As they left, Naomi finally looked at him just for a second. Then her hands lifted, slow, hesitant. Will you come back? Marcus signed, Anytime you want me to. She nodded. It was the smallest moment, but it meant everything. Marcus drove slowly through the late afternoon traffic of Koreatown, the sun dipping behind the clustered rooftops, as if tired from a long day of watching over millions. The city glowed in orange and gold, but the car felt quiet, too quiet. Amira sat in the back seat, hugging her backpack, staring at the drawing Naomi had given her. The jagged-petaled sunflower. She was sad today. Amira signed when Marcus glanced at her through the rearview mirror. He nodded. She's been through a lot. Amira hesitated, then signed. But she talked a little. With her hands. That means she trusts me, right? Yes, Marcus signed back. It means she trusts us both. Zant. But even as he reassured her, a knot tightened beneath his ribs. The 30-minute visit had been a breakthrough, but also a cruel reminder. Naomi was still trapped in a system that didn't speak her language, a system that offered safety but not understanding. Shelter, but not connection. And connection was the only thing that had kept that girl alive long enough to be saved. He kept thinking about the question she'd signed at the end, Will you come back? And how she'd asked it with her entire body, hope, fear, longing, all woven into that tiny gesture. He had to come back. He would come back. But how many times would CPS allow it before they closed the door? In the front seat, his phone buzzed. Unknown number, Los Angeles County Child Services. He answered immediately. Mr. Evans? A familiar voice said. Patricia, I wanted to thank you again for coming today. Naomi responded to you both more than she's responded to. Well, anyone else. She needs continuity, Marcus said. She needs someone who can talk to her. Yes, Patricia said, and he could hear the weariness creeping into her tone. The system is overstretched. There are too few ASLU-trained foster homes. Too few families willing to take in a deaf child. Marcus gripped the steering wheel. So what happens next? Tomorrow, Naomi has a psychological evaluation scheduled. It'll help determine her placement options. Does the evaluator know ASL? A long pause. No, Patricia admitted. Marcus let out a breath that felt too heavy for his lungs. Patricia continued carefully. But an interpreter will be present. It's the best we can do on short notice. He didn't raise his voice, but his words were cold steel. Best isn't enough. Not for her. I know, Patricia said softly, and I'm trying. But you understand protocol, funding, availability. Protocol didn't save her at the airport, Marcus said. My daughter did. Another silence, deeper this time. I'll see what I can move around, Patricia said. But please understand, my hands are tied in many ways. He hung up, not rudely, just tiredly. As he drove, he realized he wasn't just frustrated with CPS. He was frustrated with himself. He wanted to help Naomi. But how? He wasn't her family. He wasn't even her neighbor. He was a man who had stepped into her life because his daughter had refused to look away. And yet he felt responsible. Not legally, not by any policy, but morally. Amira broke his thoughts by signing. Can we make something for her next time? Like cookies? Or a story? Marcus glanced back with a gentle smile. Maybe both. Will we see her again soon? Amira asked. We'll try, Marcus signed. We'll keep trying. Do. The next morning, Marcus arrived early to pick up Naomi for her evaluation. Patricia met him in the foster family's driveway, her briefcase tucked under her arm, her expression lined with stress. "Mr. Evans," she said, walking over. "I wasn't sure you'd make it." "You said she'd need someone who can talk to her," he replied. "So I'm here." Patricia hesitated. "You should know some people at CPS think you're getting too involved. They think you're attached." "I am," Marcus said plainly. "But that doesn't make me unfit to help." "No," Patricia agreed. "It makes you human. And frankly, it makes you exactly the kind of person Naomi needs right now." Before Marcus could respond, the foster mother opened the door and gently guided Naomi outside. The girl's hair was neatly braided, but her eyes looked tired, dark smudges beneath them. She carried the sunflower drawing folded with care. When she saw Amira hop out of the car and wave, Naomi's posture softened fractionally. Marcus crouched to sign. "We're going with you today. We won't leave." Something changed in Naomi's eyes. Not relief. Not yet. But the very beginning of trust. A tiny crack in the wall. The psychological evaluation was held in a county office building, cold floors, hard chairs, buzzing fluorescent lights. Naomi sat stiffly between Marcus and Amira as a therapist in her mid-30 seconds entered the room with an interpreter. The interpreter introduced herself in friendly ASL, but Naomi barely looked at her. She kept glancing at Marcus instead. The therapist began with simple questions. "What's your name?" Naomi signed slowly. "Naomi Torres." "How old are you?" 11. The therapist nodded, jotting notes. "Do you feel safe in your current home?" Naomi hesitated. Her eyes flicked to the interpreter, then to Marcus. "It's quiet," she signed, "but no one understands me." Dud. Marcus felt that like a punch to the chest. The therapist moved on. "Do you remember what happened before the airport?" Naomi's hands froze. She glanced down. Then, small and reluctant, she signed. "She said I was worthless. Easy to sell. A good deal." The room went still. Amira slid her hand into Naomi's without being asked. "Not true," Amira signed firmly. "You're amazing." Naomi didn't respond, but her fingers curled around Amira's. The therapist continued. "Do you have anyone you trust?" Naomi didn't pause this time. She pointed at Amira, then at Marcus. The interpreter's breath hitched. The therapist wrote something down, something slow, deliberate, meaningful. When the evaluation ended, the interpreter closed her notebook and looked at Marcus privately. "She barely looked at me," she whispered. "But she watched you. The entire time. You're her anchor." Marcus swallowed hard. "I didn't do anything special." You did," the interpreter said gently. "You listened." As they walked back to the car, Naomi tugged gently on Marcus's sleeve. Her hands lifted. "Will you come again, please?" Marcus crouched, looking her straight in the eyes. "I'll come as long as you want me to." She nodded, lip trembling. Then she signed something new, something fragile, something that made his heart twist. "I don't want to disappear." "You won't," Marcus signed. "Not while we see you, and we always will." Naomi didn't smile, but she breathed. For a child drowning in silence, that breath was loud. Marcus stood in the hallway outside the evaluation room, arms crossed tightly over his chest, while Naomi sat inside with a CPS clerk reviewing basic paperwork. The sun had already begun its slow descent behind the hazy LA skyline, casting long slashes of amber light across the floor tiles. Amira leaned against his leg, fiddling with the sunflower drawing Naomi had given her days ago. She hadn't said much since they left the evaluation. She didn't need to. Her silence mirrored his. "She thinks we're her family," Amira finally signed. Marcus looked down. "Do you think we are?" Amira gave a tiny shrug, then signed with sure hands. "She trusts us. That's family, right?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he exhaled, slow and measured, and looked back through the narrow window. Naomi sat with her back stiff, legs dangling off the 2F-tall chair. The CPS worker across from her was kind, at least from what he could tell, but also distracted. Naomi's fingers were still. No signing, no expression, just stillness. That wasn't what children were supposed to look like. A door creaked beside him. Patricia stepped out from the supervisor's office, her face drawn. "She's done for today," Patricia said. "They'll take her back to the foster home tonight." "Same placement. Same people. Still no one who speaks ASL?" Marcus asked. Patricia shook her head slowly. "We're making calls. but no luck yet. Our language-appropriate family list is thin, and the ones we have are at capacity. Marcus stared at the wall, jaw set. So what does she do? Just sit in silence? Hope someone guesses her feelings? She draws, Patricia replied quietly. And she writes in broken English when she has to. But she's tired. She's tired of trying to be understood. He nodded once, his throat burning. I want to be considered for guardianship. Patricia blinked. Excuse me? I know I'm not a relative. I'm not a registered foster parent. I'm not local. But I want to apply, officially, for guardianship, or fostering, or whatever the legal term is in California. Patricia exhaled, shoulders sagging. Mr. Evans, that's a major undertaking. You live in another state. You're a single parent, and you've only known Naomi for a few days. Though, she nearly got trafficked in broad daylight, Marcus said. And nobody saw her. Nobody understood her. But my daughter did. And I did. That has to count for something. I'm not saying it doesn't, Patricia said, but the system left her behind at that airport. Marcus interrupted. The system told me to walk away when I asked for help, and I didn't. That girl looked at me and asked, "Will you come back?" And I told her yes. I meant it. No, Patricia didn't speak for a long moment. Then she said quietly, I'll get you the paperwork. They left the building as dusk settled across the city. Traffic rolled in slow, steady waves. Naomi walked between Marcus and Amira, a quiet triangle of presence and protection. No one said anything until they reached the curb. This is where we say goodbye for now, Patricia said gently. The foster driver had arrived, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes and too many empty fast food cups in her back seat. Naomi looked at the car, then at Marcus, then at Amira. She didn't move. Naomi, Patricia said softly. It's okay. It's just for tonight. Naomi's hands lifted, not to argue, not to explain. Just a quiet sign. I'm scared. Marcus knelt down in front of her. You're not alone, he signed. We'll see you again. Soon. Naomi hesitated. Her fingers hovered, then signed. Will you come back tomorrow? Amira jumped in. We'll come back every day if they let us. Naomi nodded. A single, small motion. Marcus opened the back door and helped her in. She looked out the window until the car disappeared into traffic. He stood there for a while. Dad, Amira signed, tugging on his sleeve. Are we really going to take her home? He looked at her, eyes tired but clear. I hope so, he signed. Back at the apartment, paperwork covered the kitchen table. Forms, waivers, background check authorizations. Marcus had never seen so many lines asking him to prove he was a good man. He filled out each one slowly, double-checking every box. Amira helped by reading the questions aloud, though she skipped the ones about income and marital status with a frown. You're the best dad I know, she said quietly, as he signed another form. Thanks, Peanut, he muttered, trying not to let the emotion crack his voice. The form asked, why do you wish to foster or adopt this child? He paused. Then he wrote, because I saw her when no one else did. The next morning, Marcus received a call from Patricia. I've scheduled a home visit for Friday, she said. We'll need to inspect your apartment and confirm your readiness. I'll be ready, Marcus said. Naomi's placement remains temporary, she added, but the supervisor is aware of your intent. For now, your visits can continue under supervision. Same window, 30 minutes. Marcus exhaled. We'll take every minute. That afternoon, when Naomi entered the room for their visit, she looked different. Tired, yes, wary. But when she saw Amira, her lips twitched. The beginnings of something close to a smile. Amira rushed over and signed. We brought snacks. Naomi's eyes lit up. Marcus opened the brown paper bag and revealed chocolate chip cookies wrapped in foil. They're not fancy, he signed, but they're warm. Naomi touched one with her fingertips, then took a small bite. Her shoulders relaxed, just a little, as the girls sat cross-legged on the floor, drawing with markers Amira had brought. Marcus sat beside them, watching, present. Naomi paused and looked up. Why do you keep coming, she signed. Marcus considered the question. Then he signed slowly. Because you matter. Naomi's expression flickered. Her hands moved again. Even though I'm not yours? You don't have to be mine for me to care, Marcus replied. But I'd be proud if you were. A silence fell between them. Not empty. Full. Naomi picked up a blue marker and began to draw another flower. This one had straighter petals. Upright. Reaching. And this time, she drew the sun, too. Marcus pulled into the parking lot of the CPS Visitation Center for the 4th time in 7 days. The familiarity of the place, the beige walls, the flickering fluorescent light over the entryway, the scuffed linoleum floors was starting to dig under his skin. It wasn't the sterility of the place that bothered him most. It was the clock. 30 minutes. That's all they ever gave him. Like a window cracked open just wide enough to glimpse warmth, but not to step through. He checked the time. 3:27 p.m. He was early. Again. Amira sat in the back seat, braiding her own hair with pink elastic bands, humming to herself. She was wearing her best shirt, the one with the sparkly kitten on the front, because she said Naomi liked it. You ready? Marcus asked as he turned in his seat. Amira nodded, fingers finishing a lopsided braid. She likes when I tell her about whiskers. I'm going to tell her whiskers fell off the windowsill again. Marcus chuckled. That poor cat has no balance. No, Amira signed. Neither do I, and giggled. They walked in together. At the security desk, the receptionist didn't even ask for their IDs anymore. They were regulars now. Marcus signed the visitor log. 3:32. Naomi was already waiting in the visitation room, her hands tucked beneath her thighs, her body tense. She looked up the moment Amira entered, and her shoulders eased just a fraction. Amira waved. Naomi signed back slowly. You came. We always will, Amira signed. Marcus set down the bag they'd brought. Sketchbooks, markers, and 2 cartons of chocolate milk. Naomi took one, signing softly. Thank you. They settled in. The girls began drawing. Marcus sat nearby, observing present, but not hovering. Over the past week, Naomi had started initiating conversation, sometimes even making jokes. She signed more fluidly, more freely. But the moment the clock crept past the halfway mark of their time, Marcus could see it. She began to shrink, like a tide pulling back, like she was preparing for goodbye before it arrived. At minute 26, Patricia poked her head in. 4 more minutes, she said gently. Marcus looked at Naomi. Her fingers had gone still. Amira signed something silly, something about their cat eating a shoelace, but Naomi didn't react. When the clock hit 30 minutes exactly, a staffer opened the door. Time's up. Naomi rose without a word. She placed her drawing on the table, an image of a tall sunflower leaning over 2 smaller ones. Then she turned toward the door, but as she stepped past Marcus, she paused. Her hand brushed his arm. I hate goodbyes, she signed. Marcus nodded, trying to keep his voice steady. So do I. It feels like disappearing, Naomi added, eyes downcast. He knelt in front of her. You're not disappearing. You're just going back to a house. Not forever. Just for now. She stared at him. Then she signed. I want forever. That night, after putting Amira to bed, Marcus sat at the kitchen table with a notepad and a laptop. The CPS application process was in full swing. Home visit in 2 days. Background check already filed. Financial records submitted. But one thing kept staring back at him. Intent to foster across state lines. A red flag category that required extra scrutiny. More signatures. More delays. He clicked through agency websites, reading horror stories and success stories in equal measure. Some children waited months. Others vanished between paperwork and bureaucracy. He thought about Naomi's sunflower drawing. I want forever. His phone buzzed. Patricia. He answered immediately. Hi, she said, her voice lower than usual. Everything okay? She had another nightmare, Patricia said. The foster mother called. Naomi woke up screaming. No sound, just thrashing. It took 20 minutes to calm her down. Marcus gripped the edge of the table. She kept signing one thing, Patricia continued, over and over. What? Don't send me back. Marcus felt something splinter inside his chest. "Let me take her," he said. "It's not that simple." "Why not? I've passed every test. I have a stable home. I speak her language. She trusts me. That should be enough." "She's in California custody," Patricia reminded him. "You're in Illinois. To transfer placement across state lines, we need both CPS offices to approve, plus judicial review. That can take months." "Naomi doesn't have months." "I know," Patricia whispered. "Believe me, I know. But the law doesn't move on emotion, even when it should." There was a long silence. "I'll drive here every weekend if I have to," Marcus said finally. "I'll fly. I'll do whatever it takes." Patricia was quiet for a moment longer. Then she said softly, "That's what makes you different." Meh. 3 days later, on Friday afternoon, Marcus stood in his apartment doorway in Chicago while 2 CPS agents from the Illinois office examined every corner of his small home. They measured the distance between the stove and the sink. They noted the condition of the smoke detector. They reviewed the ASL alphabet posters in Amira's bedroom, the chore chart on the fridge, the list of emergency contacts by the phone. "This place is small," one agent said, jotting something on his clipboard. "It's home," Marcus replied. "Where would Naomi sleep?" Marcus opened the door to the second bedroom. "Here. We've already added the bed." Amira helped pick out the comforter. It was a bright teal color dotted with sunflowers. "She likes those," he added. The agent gave a neutral nod and wrote something else. An hour later, they left. No verdict, no promise. Just a reminder. The process would take time. But Marcus didn't have time. Naomi didn't have time. That night, after Amira went to bed, Marcus sat alone at the table again. He scrolled through photos on his phone, ones he'd taken of Naomi's drawings, the ones she left behind. A house. A tree. A flower. And always, a little girl standing beside another girl. Always two. Always together. Then came one that made him stop. Naomi had drawn a family. 3 people. A man with a beard, 2 girls holding his hands, and above them, in clumsy, uneven letters, "Forever family." Marcus's throat tightened. No law, no agency, no wall of bureaucracy could erase what Naomi already saw, what she had chosen. He picked up his phone and texted Patricia. "I'm not backing down. She's ours, even if the paperwork doesn't know it yet." The sound of the jet engine hummed in Marcus's ears as he stared out the airplane window, watching clouds pass like slow-motion waves. He and Amira were mid-air again, returning to Los Angeles for another weekend visit, another precious 30-minute window with Naomi. He'd lost count of how many flights he'd taken in the past 2 weeks. The miles didn't matter, only the minutes did. Beside him, Amira chewed on a piece of gum and clutched a small gift bag in her lap. Inside was a sunflower-shaped charm on a bracelet she had picked out with her allowance. "She can wear it even when she's scared," Amira had said, "so she knows we're always close." Marcus smiled at her now, reaching over to squeeze her hand. "You're amazing, you know that?" Amira shrugged. "Naomi's amazing. I'm just her friend." Marcus looked out the window again, but his mind was far from the clouds. It was back in that gray CPS office, where his guardianship paperwork still sat in limbo. He had filled out every form, attended every interview, passed every background check, but nothing had changed. Every answer he gave was met with the same reply: "We're reviewing." Paper walls, built high, built to keep people like Naomi waiting. But Naomi didn't have time to wait. At the CPS center in LA, Naomi was already seated in the visitation room when they arrived. Her hair was braided today, and she wore a yellow hoodie 2 sizes too big. When she saw Marcus and Amira, her eyes lit up just barely, but it was enough to make the entire flight worth it. Amira darted forward first, signing excitedly, "We brought something for you." Naomi's eyes widened as the bracelet was pulled from the gift bag. She touched it gently, tracing the sunflower charm with her thumb. Her hands lifted slowly. "It's beautiful, thank you." Marcus sat beside her, placing a hand gently on the table. "How are you doing?" he signed. Naomi hesitated, then signed. "I had another dream." "Bad?" Marcus asked. She nodded. "The woman was there. Rochelle. She said no one would come for me." Amira signed quickly. "She's wrong. We're here. Every time." Naomi's eyes welled, and she looked down, her fingers twisting around the bracelet. Marcus reached into the bag they'd brought and pulled out a small spiral notebook. He slid it across the table. "You can write your dreams down," he signed. "Or draw them. Sometimes that helps." Naomi opened the notebook and stared at the first page for a long time. Then she began to draw not something dark this time, but 3 small stick figures under a big blue sky. One had curly hair, one had braids, one had a beard. She didn't need to explain. Marcus's heart swelled and ached all at once. Back in the hallway after the visit, Marcus caught Patricia before she disappeared into a meeting. "I need a real answer," he said. "About Naomi. It's been over a month. I've done everything you've asked. Is anyone actually reviewing the case?" Patricia glanced around, then lowered her voice. "Yes, but there's an issue." "What kind of issue?" "There's a distant aunt on Naomi's mother's side who's filed for kinship placement." Marcus went still. "She's never met Naomi," Patricia added quickly. "They have no relationship. But the law favors biological connections. It's complicated." "Is she even capable of caring for Naomi?" he asked. Patricia looked down. "Unknown. She hasn't completed the home inspection. But the judge may delay your petition until her assessment is complete." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "You're telling me some woman Naomi's never met could just swoop in and take her?" Patricia hesitated. "I'm telling you the system isn't built for moments like this. It's built for rules. And sometimes rules don't care who showed up first." Marcus clenched his jaw. Naomi already made her choice. "I know," Patricia said, "and for what it's worth, so have I. I've recommended your home for permanent placement." That made him pause. "But I don't make the final decision," she added. "A judge does." Marcus exhaled, then nodded. "Then tell me what comes next." "I'm not walking away." Patricia gave him a long look. "You'll need to appear in court, present your case, show Naomi's bond to you, explain why the aunt's claim isn't in her best interest." "Done," Marcus said without hesitation. "And you'll need a lawyer." He winced. "Right, of course." Patricia reached into her bag and handed him a card. "This one helped another foster dad I worked with last year. He won. It wasn't easy, but he won." Marcus took the card and read the name, Leslie M. Broderick, child advocacy attorney. He slid it into his wallet. "Thank you." "You're welcome," Patricia said, then added quietly, "Just be ready. The aunt's legal rep is aggressive. This won't be a friendly hearing." "Nah." Marcus glanced toward the visitation room door, where Naomi had disappeared just minutes ago. "I'm not here to make friends," he said. "I'm here to fight for her." Later that evening, as the flight returned to Chicago, Marcus stared at his laptop screen, pulling together every piece of documentation he had: photos, drawings, visit logs, Amira's own letters to Naomi. He was building a case not just with facts, but with love, with presence, with proof that bonds didn't need blood to be real. Amira leaned over his shoulder, pointing to one photo of Naomi mid-laugh. "She never smiled like that before," Amira whispered. "No," Marcus said, saving the file. "But she will again, and not just for 30 minutes at a time." The courtroom was colder than Marcus expected, not in temperature, but in tone. Pale walls, stiff wooden benches, and the low murmur of procedural chatter gave the place an antiseptic feel, like a space built to drain emotion. But Marcus wasn't here for comfort. He was here to fight. Naomi sat beside him at the long table, her hands folded in her lap, the sunflower charm bracelet peeking from beneath her sleeve. Amira sat a few seats away, coloring quietly with Patricia watching over her. Their lawyer, Leslie Broderick, organized papers calmly on the table. She was a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and a kind smile, dressed in gray slacks and a burgundy blazer that matched her clipped, professional manner. Across the room, the woman who claimed to be Naomi's aunt sat stiffly with her own lawyer. Her name was Marlene Briggs, a wiry woman with a face hardened by years of bitterness and a gaze that never once settled on Naomi. "She didn't even look at her," Marcus whispered to Leslie. "She doesn't have to," Leslie said flatly. "She just has to prove she has a right. She's a stranger, and you're a guardian without blood," Leslie said. "This is the world we're navigating." "Zoo." The bailiff announced the judge's entrance. Everyone stood. Judge Miriam Keller, A seasoned black woman with silver-streaked braids and a gaze like polished steel took her seat at the bench. She glanced briefly over the room before calling the case. Case number 5147, B. Temporary guardianship hearing for minor Naomi Torres. Marcus inhaled slowly, his hands folded tightly beneath the table. Miss Broderick, the judge said, please begin. Leslie stood and nodded. Your Honor, we are here today to request a permanent guardianship review in favor of my client, Marcus Evans, who has provided consistent, trauma-informed, ASL-accessible care to the minor Naomi Torres over the last 6 weeks. She laid out the facts with precision. Naomi's inability to communicate in her original placement, her increased responsiveness and emotional growth under Marcus's care, the stability of his home, the ongoing psychological evaluations supporting their bond. We submit that Mr. Evans is not simply a good candidate, Leslie said. He is the only candidate Naomi has chosen for herself. Blood alone cannot outweigh safety, communication, and the right of a child to be seen and heard in her own language. Judge Keller gave a slow nod. Understood, Miss Donnelly? The aunt's lawyer, a woman in a boxy black suit, stood and began speaking in an overly rehearsed tone. Your Honor, we represent Miss Marlene Briggs, the legal aunt of Naomi Torres. While there may be an emotional attachment between the child and Mr. Evans, my client is the only blood relative who has come forward. California law favors kinship when determining the best interest of the child. Miss Briggs is willing and able to provide a home environment, and we believe the child should be placed with her family. Marcus clenched his jaw. Judge Keller leaned forward slightly. Miss Briggs, would you like to speak on your own behalf? The woman stood awkwardly, her eyes flitting toward Naomi for the first time. I didn't know my niece's mama had a daughter until all this came out. But when I found out, I figured, someone from the family should step up. It's the right thing to do. Blood should stick with blood, right? Naomi's hands twitched under the table. Marcus looked at her, but she stared ahead, motionless. Judge Keller spoke again. Is there a bond between you and the child, Miss Briggs? Marlene hesitated. Not yet, but that takes time. How many visits have you made? 1, last week. Judge Keller arched a brow. 1? Marlene looked flustered. I work 2 jobs. I couldn't just fly in every weekend like he can. She gestured vaguely toward Marcus. Leslie stood again. Your Honor, with respect, we're not arguing logistics. We're talking about the emotional, psychological well-being of a child who has already been through trauma, whose ability to communicate is severely limited in most environments. She turned to Marcus. Mr. Evans, would you please describe your relationship with Naomi? He stood, nerves buzzing under his skin. When I met Naomi, she was signing for help at an airport. No one noticed. No one even understood what she was saying. Except my daughter. And then, me. Me. He glanced at Naomi, then back at the judge. She didn't need another place to live. She needed someone to see her, hear her. She chose us, not the other way around. He reached into his folder and handed a printout to Leslie, who passed it to the clerk. It was a scan of Naomi's drawing. The family of 3 with the blue sky, and the words, Forever Family. She gave this to me, Marcus said, his voice thick. That's not legal documentation, but it's the truth. The courtroom went still. Judge Keller looked at the drawing, her expression unreadable. Naomi, she said gently, would you like to speak? Naomi glanced at Marcus. He nodded. She stood slowly, then stepped forward to the front of the table. Amira signed encouragement from her seat. Naomi raised her hands and began to sign. I don't know that woman. She didn't talk to me. She didn't ask what I like. She didn't ask anything. She pointed at Marcus and Amira. They listen. They understand me. They talk in my words. I feel safe. Then she hesitated and added, almost shyly, I want to stay with them. Silence settled over the room like a hush in a church. Judge Keller leaned back, her face serious. Thank you, Naomi. Naomi returned to her seat. Marcus reached over and took her hand. The judge folded her hands atop the bench. I will issue my decision within 72 hours, she said. Until then, the minor will remain in her current placement. Court adjourned. No. The gavel struck, just once, sharp. As the courtroom cleared, Marcus turned to Naomi. "You did good," he signed. She nodded once, her face unreadable. Outside in the hallway, Amira slipped her hand into Naomi's. The two girls walked ahead while Marcus and Leslie followed behind. "You think the judge will grant it?" he asked. Leslie exhaled. "I think she saw the truth today. And sometimes, that's all you can hope for." The next 3 days crawled by like molasses through a pinhole. Marcus had never experienced time this slowly. Every hour felt like a balancing act between hope and dread, his stomach constantly tight, his mind drifting back to Naomi's face when she signed, "I want to stay with them." He played that moment over and over in his mind, terrified it might not be enough. Back in Chicago, life went on. The morning routines remained unchanged. Toast and eggs, school drop-offs, laundry. But Marcus moved through each task with the dull ache of waiting hanging over him. Amira, too, seemed quieter than usual. Her energy muted as she checked his phone obsessively for notifications, as though the judge might text them the verdict herself. "She heard Naomi, right?" Amira asked one evening over dinner. She looked at her like she was really listening. "She did," Marcus said softly. "I think she did." They sat in silence for a while. Amira pushed peas around her plate, then looked up. "Do you think Naomi's scared right now?" Marcus didn't answer right away. Finally he signed, "Probably, but she knows we're not going anywhere." That night, Amira added a sticky note to the sunflower wall in Naomi's empty room. It read, "You belong here, forever." Marcus found himself standing at the doorway after she went to bed, staring at the note as if it were a vow. On the morning of the third day, Marcus's phone rang at 9:02 a.m. Caller ID, Broderick Law Group. His hand trembled as he picked up. Marcus Evans. Leslie's voice was calm, but there was a different tone beneath it, quiet excitement she was trying to control. "The judge issued her decision this morning," she said. "She's placing Naomi with you under permanent guardianship. Effective immediately." For a moment, Marcus couldn't breathe. She wait really?" "Yes," Leslie said. "She ruled that Naomi's bond with you and Amira is in her best interest. She called it a uniquely powerful emotional connection that supersedes biological obligation." Her words, not mine. Marcus sat down hard on the kitchen chair, heart racing. "She's coming home," he whispered. "She's coming home," Leslie confirmed. "We're arranging transport today. She could be with you by tomorrow evening." Tears blurred Marcus's vision. "Thank you, Leslie. I don't know how to—" "You fought for her," Leslie said. "That says more than any thank you could." "No." Marcus picked Amira up early from school. As soon as she climbed into the car, she looked at him and froze. "What happened?" He smiled, wide and tearful. "She's coming home," Amira gasped. Then she screamed. "She's really coming forever?" Marcus laughed as he nodded. "Forever." They drove straight to the store, buying fresh sheets, sunflower pillowcases, and a second nightlight for Naomi's room. Amira insisted she might be afraid of the dark. They baked cookies, cleaned the apartment top to bottom, and added more sticky notes to the wall. By nightfall, Naomi's room looked ready not just for a guest but for someone who belonged. And for the first time in weeks, Marcus fell asleep without anxiety gnawing his chest. The next evening, Patricia stepped out of a county vehicle and walked Naomi up the steps to Marcus's apartment. Naomi wore a clean hoodie and carried her old backpack. Her eyes scanned the building. Cautious. Alert. When the door opened, Amira was already there, bouncing in place. Naomi blinked. "You're really here," she signed. Amira flung her arms around her before signing, "Welcome home." Marcus crouched beside them. "This is your place now," he signed. "No visits. No time limits. Just home." Naomi stepped inside slowly. The smell of fresh-baked cookies wafted through the apartment. She wandered down the hall, then stopped at the doorway of what had been her maybe room. The door was open. A sunflower poster hung on the wall. The charm bracelet lay on the nightstand. Her drawing, the one of the 3 stick figures, had been framed and placed beside the bed. Her fingers moved tentatively. "You kept it?" "We kept all of it," Marcus said. Naomi stepped into the room and ran her hand across the comforter, then turned and looked at him, tears in her eyes. "I didn't think I was allowed to have this," she signed. Marcus reached out, pulled her into a hug, and signed against her back. "You're allowed to have everything. You're home." Patricia stood in the doorway, watching them, her own eyes wet. "I've seen a lot of cases," she said quietly, "but this is one I'll remember." "Because it ended well?" Marcus asked. Patricia smiled. "Because someone made sure it did." Naomi didn't unpack right away. She placed her backpack in the corner of her new room and sat on the edge of the bed like she was testing whether the floor would give way beneath her feet. She kept her shoes on the first night. Marcus noticed. So did Amira. Neither said a word about it. Change, even the good kind, came with quiet echoes of fear, but that didn't stop life from moving forward. By the end of the first week, Naomi had memorized the apartment's layout. She had a specific way of folding her hoodie and tucking it beneath her pillow. She liked her eggs scrambled, not fried. She always turned on the bathroom light 3 times before going in, and she never closed the door all the way. Marcus paid attention, not because he was being careful, but because she mattered. "You don't have to earn your space," he signed to her one evening after she hesitated to put a juice box in the fridge. "This is your home." "Nye." Naomi paused, then slowly added the juice next to Amira's apple slices. Progress. Amira, of course, was thrilled. She gave Naomi a tour of the neighborhood, pointing out which trees had the best leaves, which mailboxes had loose lids, and which corner store carried the gummies shaped like stars. Naomi didn't say much, but she smiled more. It wasn't wide yet, but it was real. At night, Naomi began to leave her bedroom door cracked just a little less. On a Saturday morning, Marcus stood at the kitchen counter flipping pancakes, Naomi's favorite. Amira was helping slice strawberries. Naomi watched quietly from the table, her notebook in hand. He turned toward her and signed, "Want to help?" She hesitated. "You don't have to if you don't want to," he added, "but it smells better if you're the one flipping." Naomi smiled faintly, then stood and crossed the kitchen slowly. Marcus handed her the spatula. Her hand trembled a little as she slid it beneath the pancake, but she flipped it perfectly. Amira clapped. Naomi flushed, then signed, "That one's mine." Marcus grinned. "Of course it is." It was more than breakfast. It was a claim, a moment that said, "I'm here. I belong. I flipped this pancake. This is mine." Later that week, Naomi's first therapy session was scheduled through a local trauma-informed clinic. It was a requirement of the guardianship review, but Marcus had insisted on it anyway. Healing would take more than good intentions. It would take help. Dr. Adrienne Lucas was a black woman in her 50s with soft eyes and nimble fingers that moved fluidly in ASL. Naomi was quiet during the first session, barely signing at all. But she watched. She observed everything. Afterward, as they left the office,